Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now it's time for the week that was. Let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines around the globe this week. We begin here at home as the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has admitted a major system failure that altered the results of the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. A tearful JAMB registrar accepted responsibility for the errors, which have infuriated parents and led to the death of a candidate. Arise correspondent Juliet Obata reports.
As registrar of JAMB, I hold myself personally responsible including for the negligence of the service provider and I unreservedly apologize for it.
That was a remorseful JAMB registrar at a news conference. This admission of culpability follows an avalanche of complaints by parents of UTME candidates who failed the examination and the unfortunate suicide of a 19-year-old student in Lagos who killed herself after receiving a score of 170 in the examination. JAMB attributes the error to a systems failure and is apologizing to students and parents for the trauma caused.
We deploy our system to the use of high-profile organizations within and outside Nigeria as part of the broader strategy of ensuring that everything works well when we need it to work. As part of our preparation for this year, we updated our system from form-based to the single-item-based examination, the latter of which is the in thing presently internationally. We simulated this system, streamlined our Autobot and Auto system, and still went ahead to develop our own JAMB test, a software innovated in-house by a small team led by our own staff, DUBEM. We improved on the examination system, simulated everything end-to-end before the examination, and we thought everything was perfect. All the layers, including using dummies, were deployed this year, but despite that, an error happened. It is a classical manifestation of the axiom that man proposes, but God disposes.
Out of 18,000 complaints received by JAMB, 15,000 have been verified to be correct. To remedy the situation, about 207,000 candidates will retake the UTME in 65 centers in Lagos and over 173,000 candidates in 92 centers in Owerri zone.
Within 24 hours of rigorous work, we were able to isolate where the problem emanated from, as I've said earlier on. It happened in 65 centers in Lagos and 92 centers in Owerri zone. That is covering the cities, just as Ibadan is regarded as Ibadan zone, covering all the 5 states of the Southwest. Owerri is also covering all the 5 states of the East, of the Southeast. But Lagos stands alone because of the huge number that is coming from Lagos alone.
Already, some parents have threatened a class action against JAMB for the mass failures originally released.
I can tell you, and I can prove to you, that what I'm saying now, if you ask me to place my WhatsApp number here, and for parents to contact me, before tomorrow we will have about 1,000 parents. If those children are kept in a place and on camera to write this JAMB, you will see that most of them will clear the JAMB. So it is not the children who have not prepared well. It is JAMB that has just messed up the efforts of these children. And that is why I'm saying it on national television. If you bring her in on camera and you give her these questions, she will clear it. Okay. I am very confident that my daughter will clear those papers.
Apart from being representing Mr. Nalue here, we are pleased to say that we are also representing the millions of Nigerians that JAMB has failed.
For now, about 380 students will take the UTME in 157 centers in Lagos and Owerri from Friday the 16th to Sunday the 18th of May. Juliet Obata, Arise News.
Well, those examination retakes are currently underway as we speak and will continue until the weekend concludes. And, you know, they had to take this period because, of course, this is a season of examinations. There are other exams that the students will also have to sit for. So they'll quickly have to take up this weekend. But gosh, there's a lot of mixed feelings around how this issue has been handled by JAMB and by the JAMB registrar, Professor Oloyede. Personally, I think it's commendable that we're seeing a situation where somebody in a position of responsibility is taking the responsibility of culpability. Something went wrong. We own up to it. They could have easily made this issue go away quietly. But, you know, the transparency is commendable. However, I believe the obedient movement has come out to say that he should go as far as resigning, that they're not content with his apology and with them rolling out a retake of the exams. What's the real solution here? I think the real solution is neither here nor there. I think the real solution lies with us being able to have a leadership that can be accountable when something goes wrong and see where to make those corrections, because nobody is perfect. Even technology also has its issues. So that's my take on that. Secondly, I think it's an important moment for us to consider the culture of doing mock exercises in a wider breadth, not just with JAMB, also with INEC, where we have system failures and system glitches and so forth. Let's have a culture of doing widespread mocks before the actual event, because we have ample time to prepare for us to, you know, to encounter these sorts of challenges. Absolutely. That's my take on it.
Absolutely, Vimbai, and I do agree with you. I think what happened was a mess, was a big mess, undoubtedly. And all the parents who have spoken about their children, about their words, you know, I mean, they're very much within their right to, you know, to express disappointment. But I don't think that it is fair to solely make this about Professor Oloyede. Given his track record, you know, given what he has, the changes that he has brought to bear on JAMB, you know, which were unprecedented. I also think that it is sad that the whole issue has been ethnicized in a way, you know, on social media, on respectable platforms that you will expect people to be a lot more discerning, perhaps reasonable. But, you know, this is how we roll somehow in Nigeria. I think there are a few key issues here. First will be the issue of preparedness and technical competence. And it is obvious from what happened that maybe JAMB was not fully ready. Maybe there were issues that they ought to have attended to much more clinically than they did. But of course, you also should show understanding, given that the excuse is that it was a technical glitch. I don't want to go the way of, you know, INEC and comparing it to the political, you know, space, and to say, oh, if it could happen to INEC, why not to JAMB? No, that's not the way I look at it. The way I would look at it will be when it happens elsewhere, how are issues like this dealt with, particularly when it concerns exams. And the interesting development is that similar things have happened in far more advanced countries as far as technology is concerned: United States, India. Even in Egypt, I recall in 2019, when a similar exam happened in Cairo, and there was mass failure due to glitches and things like that. The students, you know, went out and protested that, you know, police had to come out and disperse them. India is far ahead of us. It's like, you know, when it comes to IT, a hub. But almost consistently, these issues happen. The SAT exam in America in 2022, early this year, you know, issues of technical glitches. And you can't say that America and India do not know what they're doing when it comes to things like this. So what are the things that JAMB should learn from other climes where things like that happen? I think that is where Professor Oloyede and his team should take a cue from that. It can happen because you're not in control. You are not in total control. When it therefore happens, the sort of response that we got is first, take ownership and responsibility. And I commend Prof, Oloyede, Ishaq Oloyede, for what he has done. People have said maybe crocodile tears and everything. I don't think so. I think that this is a 70-year-old man who was moved, to say that, for all I've done and all I'm trying to do. Don't forget that there was a time in JAMB that nobody was remitting money. Yes, you could argue that that is not your core area. Your main mandate is to conduct exams clinically, in a good way. And I think that he has managed to do that. He was the one that moved JAMB, to the path of technology anyway. So if people are saying resign, my inclination would be to say no. Let him stay and clear the mess. Let's see what he makes of this retake examination. Let's see what happens next year before we now begin to rethink the whole idea of JAMB anyway. Because it was in 1977 that the first set of people who took JAMB, in this manner, before there wasn't anything like JAMB, you just, make applications to universities. Many universities of the world, as you know them by, that is the approach now, not a central, examination body that will determine, that you now take the result and say, I passed, therefore take me. If you're going to go to Leicester or Leeds, anywhere in the world, even Ghana, many of our kids who purportedly failed JAMB here now go to universities in Ghana just applying directly to their university. They come back with 2-1 with first class, getting jobs ahead of those who are taking JAMB here. The other point, will be to say what has been the track record in terms of mass failure in the last 7 to 10 years. You will see that it's not fantastically different from, hovering around 20, 23, 25% pass mark. This is what we got again this year. Outside of the technical glitches, you can almost place a bet that it's not likely that you will get up to 30% who will score more than 200, because that's what we've been seeing in the past few years. Why is that so? Those are the areas that I believe that Prof, the schools, and more importantly, the Minister of Education, who rushed to town, to make, I think that an apology is also needed from him, if not something more, So there's a lot that they can do. I believe that Professor Oloyede can fix the mess. He should fix the mess and assure people that he's up to it. This is his second tenure, barely second year. He's got maybe about 2 more years to go. If you just ask him to go because people are disappointed, no, we need him to fix the mess because we know him to be a qualified, credible, and remarkable Nigerian. An error was committed, a glitch occurred, but then we think that there's a gentleman who can fix it and reassure Nigerians, absolutely, and reassure Nigerians that things can get better. That would be my opinion on it. But of course, let's see how the federal government in general look at it. He's been sued, JAMB has been sued, but again, people are still angry, for the right reasons. I am angry. I have a ward who took this exam, but then I can't basically say just because there were issues, or maybe somebody will have scored 300 or 350 or something, or we take it to the ridiculous aspect of now revisiting what happened 2 years ago and say, oh, let us go and look at what happened to that young lady. I don't want to go there because I don't think that it will be fair on those who have taken the exam now. But let's move on. Yeah. All right, to secure the country's forest, President Bola Tinubu has approved the establishment of forest guards to secure Nigeria's 1,129 forests. In a statement posted on X by Special Advisor Sunday Dare, the president directed that the forest guards be well-trained and armed to flush out terrorist and criminal gangs hiding in the forest. The recruitment is a joint effort between federal and state governments. The Office of the National Security Advisor and the Ministry of Environment will oversee full implementation. Thousands of young Nigerians are expected to be employed for the initiative. President Tinubu reiterated that his administration will not surrender any part of Nigeria's territory to criminals, vowing to take back the forest. Interesting development on the part of the federal government, and I commend it for two reasons. First will be that this was part of the renewed hope agenda that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu campaigned with. He did mention in clear terms that the idea of forest gas will be part of what he will look into as part of the solutions, holistic solutions, to cleaning our forests and ensuring that terrorists and bandits are dealt with. The second part, of course, will be that I believe there is an admission of the fact that the situation is dire at this time. 2 years down the line, I even think that this is coming a little bit too late. It ought to have been a part of the rollout plan from 2023. But that's not a problem. Here we are. What, therefore, are the issues? How will this beautiful idea that seeks to secure our forests, more than 1,000 of them from what Sunday Dare, who, by the way, was a cabinet member in the immediate past, administration of General Buhari, and who has now, taken a step down to be one of the spokespersons for the president, and who therefore will know and should understand that this is not the first time that this sort of idea will come up. I like the fact that the National Assembly is now saying that there's actually a bill towards this, and it will be important for the president, to sign it, which I believe he will, so that he can give verve to the old idea. But then, how will the implementation roll out? How will the federal government, through the office of the NSA, Nuri Badu, and the Ministry of Environment, work with the states who already have existing structures in Lagos, in the whole of Southwest, where you have the Amotekun, in the east where you have Ebubeagu, in many parts of the north where hunters were even deployed at a time, to Sambisa Forest, to many parts of the north. How will they work together? Will this be like another layer to policing, particularly when the president says that they will have to be trained and they will have to bear, arms? It would be important to see that who will oversee all of these things, given the fact that we are already under-policed and the issue of state policing hasn't been sufficiently dealt with. So if you now have a new crop of guards who are essentially for the forest, what will they be really in terms of, identity? Will they work with the civil defense, for example? Will they be a unit under the police? There are areas that they will need to clear out. Ideas can be beautiful on paper, but then when it comes to roll out, how many people? We're already talking in terms of, youths, thousands of them, but the police need manpower too, and we're not yet providing it. So I commend the idea, but then it will have to be a lot more convincing when it comes, for the area of implementation, and how they will work seamlessly with the state and regional, government.
Absolutely. I think implementation is always where where we see how viable policy is, because ideas are brilliant, but how do we bring life to them? Especially because we already have park rangers.
Yeah,
so it will be interesting to see how different the forest guards will be compared to the park rangers. Will they be integrated into one another? Will the park rangers be reskilled and armed? And this is adding to the layer you've already introduced of the vigilante groups, police. And then the other question is, non-kinetic, when we're speaking of non-kinetic strategies, non-kinetic strategies are usually led by the police.
That's right.
But we're seeing almost a departure from that, as we're seeing there's a need for more of an armed and a military and a combative response to what's happening. I believe in the briefing a couple of weeks ago, the Minister of Defense had said that what we're engaging in is almost like a guerrilla in its nature.
Warfare.
It's guerrilla warfare in its nature, because it's not like there's a clear-cut battle line. These people are hidden within forests, they collude with communities and so forth. So this strategy, I think, is apt. This is the correct way to tackle this. In the past month, we've seen the president meet with the service chiefs on 2 occasions, the second being yesterday. And yesterday, the Chief of Defense Staff did address the press, and he said that, well, there seems to have been a surge in this terrorist activity coming from the Sahel. And of course, given the nature of our borders, we're seeing some increased activity within our own borders as well. So all of this also goes to show you that this is a priority to the president because of the recurrence in the meetings with the service chiefs. He did, the first time he met with them in April, he did make a commitment to re-strategizing and looking for a new way to tackle the menace of insecurity. So that's clear and obvious that there's a re-strategizing happening. Yesterday, when the NAF inaugurated 2, the vice president inaugurated 2 helicopters into battle for order of the battle for the NAF. They also disclosed about some new gadgets for the Air Force that are on their way as well. And this is in response to, remember, there was the narrative around these terrorists claim to have drones and all sorts of highly technological warfare weaponry. So I think that seeing a proactive body language is refreshing.
Absolutely.
And I hope this can translate into tangible results on the ground. Secondly, state policing seems to be reaching a stalemate. The conversation around it, whether it be with the governors, whether it be in the National Assembly, we're not really making headway with this, and which is unfortunate because at the moment, it seems we're more worried about individual overreach of power than the general good, the communal good that one might derive from such an initiative. However, at least from the executive, we're seeing him use his powers as commander-in-chief within his capacity to redirect and re-strategize. And we continue to encourage our armed forces to keep their morale up as we continue to battle insecurity. Now to other issues. As a former Jigawa State Governor, Sule Lamido has called on President Bola Tinubu to be courageous enough to close the June 12 chapter once and for all by paying the alleged 45 billion naira owed the family of Chief MKO Abiola by the federal government. Speaking at the public presentation of his autobiography, Being True to Myself, in Abuja on Tuesday, Lamido said the payment of the 45 billion debt owed the Abiola family would serve as a symbolic and moral closure to the June 12 struggle and Abiola's unjust treatment following the annulment of the 1993 presidential election, widely believed to have been won by him. June 12 continues to be a sticking point and a sore point, and it seems that as we get more and more of the players who were involved in what transpired coming out and telling their sides of the story, New dimensions are being introduced. So when the story came out earlier in the week, I'd said that I think it's important for us to get objective historians to be commissioned to actually sit down and document the history in a factual way, or else we run the risk of the autobiographies are important, and it's important for the individuals to tell their stories, but we run the risk of creating a form of historical denialism. I specifically use denialism and not revisionism, because revisionism means that we've agreed that this is what happened and we're going to change the facts. Denialism is us saying that, well, there's possibly a counter-narrative to what happened. We saw the book launch, IBB's book launch as well. I believe his book, autobiography, is titled My Journey in Service. Valuable information. But again, what will happen in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years when the history of this day is being retold, Steve? I really do worry about what version of events is going to be passed on to future generations. So for me, it's incredibly important that we can have more objective historians come together, as much as us actioning, implementing the return of compulsory history in our schools. But let's just have a level playing field where we know that these are the accepted events that happened. And from there, we are now able to say, I know in the past there have been attempts at doing some sort of reconciliatory panels and so forth. But I genuinely do feel that it is time for another attempt at some sort of a national dialogue or reconciliation? Because it seems there's still grievances. Steve is saying your body language says no. But it seems there's still a lot of grievances that haven't been settled. There's still a lot of groups, not just with June 12th, but with several events in history, from the Civil War, various coups and so forth. And these grievances come up in our politics. And yes, even having a truth and reconciliation panel doesn't necessarily just put everything aside and take it away, but it has a way of at least trying to address and, shall we say, appease those who feel that they've been treated in an unfair way in the past by past administrations.
I get that point very clearly, Vimbai, but I'm not so sure if the submissions by the former governor of Jigawa State, Sule Lamido, is sincere. I think that he's being clever by half. First, it was a book launch about him. It had nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with June 12 or the Abiola family. Okay, if there were parts of the book where there were recollections of his understanding of what happened more than 30 years ago, that's fine. But then I failed to tie June 12 to the 45 billion naira that he's requesting for, shall we say, on behalf of the Abiola family. Because we are, the money that he seems to be referring to predates the idea of June 12. I think that it had to do with some businesses that the late, yes, ITT and all those things in the 70s and the 80s and stuff. Is Governor Lamido very qualified to make categorical submissions about the late MKO Abiola's business on the one hand and the welfare of his family on the other? I'm not so sure. And I don't think that he should assign himself to be the vuvuzela of the family. He also shouldn't attempt to railroad the current administration to consider paying any money. If there is a president that, of course, will show understanding to the Abiola family, I know that it is this president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But the idea of it, in my opinion, would not come from Sule Lamido. Has there been any submission about the debt, legacy debt, being owed MKO Abiola, that the family, maybe led by Kola Abiola, the scion of the family, to any government at all, whether the last administration or this current one? The last administration, as you remember, honored MKO Abiola with the June 12, national holiday. The government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has even done a lot more, giving MKO Abiola, recognizing, of course, that he won the election, and of course, honoring him with a GCON, the highest in the land. And so I don't think that there are aspects of June 12, as we know it, that has been left unattended. If we are talking about money to be paid to the family, I don't know how you arrived at 45 billion. I think that it should come from the family with justification. If it was about ITT, then it shouldn't come from Sule Lamido. Was he part of ITT? Was he Abiola's friend? Did he work with him? Why is he carrying this as a major aspect of his own book launch? So I think that he should be careful so that it doesn't seem like he's causing disaffection between Bola Tinubu as the president and the Abiola's family, because there isn't any. A number of people from the Abiola family worked, for the campaign, during the campaign for Tinubu. I think one or two from the family are now working in this government. So there is access to the president. There's access to this government. If there are genuine reasons why the Nigerian government should pay to the Abiola family, that demand or request will be made from the family, not from a former governor of Jigawa State, who is telling his own story in his own memoir at his own show. And therefore, that's why I said that, maybe it's been clever by half. 45 billion shouldn't be the issue. It is, how did we arrive here? And frankly speaking, what are we talking about? If it's about the ITT, we should be careful so that Fela's song doesn't begin to ring in our heads all over again. Vimbai, that would be my submission.